Hey everybody, welcome to the Film Fan Club show, also known as the Fan Film Club, Movie Review Club, and that YouTube thing you do. I am your host, Sam Carrico, Emmy Award winner. We've got a solid show for you tonight, and by solid, I mean if you squint hard enough, it may resemble gold. But first, we need to talk about the big news. Deadpool and Wolverine are back. Seriously, my excitement level is like when someone tells you they found a leftover piece of pizza in the fridge. You're thrilled until you remember you had tacos for dinner last night. Oliver Ricketts will join us soon to dive into that mess. But as we stepped into Deadpool 3, the buzz was, can this movie save the MCU? It's like when you're at a party and you hear someone say, we should invite that guy who always brings the awful cheese dip. You're excited for the potential, but when you taste it, you're not sure if you should throw it on social media or throw it in the trash. After Avengers Endgame felt like the last chapter in a really expensive book, it seemed like Marvel was having a full-blown identity crisis. Kinda like the time I got highlights in college and thought I could pull off being a 90s boy band member. I couldn't. And honestly, the worldwide pandemic didn't help either. You know what I thought? It was a great opportunity to hit the pause button on Marvel. But instead, they slammed the gas pedal. It was like watching a chef say, more ingredients, let's see what explodes. And let me tell you, if you haven't looked at how many Disney Plus Marvel shows exist, it's enough to make you wonder if they're mistakenly making a cooking tutorial in the middle of a superhero film. You think you're keeping up? Forget about it. You blink and suddenly there are 3 more Marvel shows, and I'm drowning in a sea of heroes, villains, and my own existential dread. I wanted to watch Moon Knight, believe me. I was prepared. But deep down, I was also watching the Great British Bake Off instead, because let's be real, no one's lost anything by going to Elizabeth's tea shop over Hulk smashing another city. And now, Marvel is pushing the multiverse harder than my ex pushed her vegan diet. It's a great concept until everyone's trying to make sense of it, and I'm sitting there thinking, am I on a movie binge or watching a really confusing episode of Doctor Who? Look, Spider-Man No Way Home was legendary, but then Marvel followed it up with Multiverse of Madness, and I felt the only thing that was mad was my decision to watch it. Quantumania? Oh boy, let's just say I looked at my popcorn and thought, this is a much better story. Marvel's been throwing everything at the wall like a puppy, hoping it sticks. But like a puppy, it turns out it's just dog shit. And look, the suits over at Disney, they don't care about quality. They care about bank accounts. But ever since the pandemic, I feel like Marvel's strategy has been like that friend who went on one vacation but won't stop posting pictures from it. The only major hit post-pandemic for them was Guardians of the Galaxy 3, and that was made by the guy jumping ship to DC. But hey, my pizza reference from earlier is paying off because that's like using pizza dough to bake a cake. That's how you do a callback, guys. But just when I thought Marvel was dead on arrival, they came roaring back with Deadpool 3. As of this recording, it's racked up over 650 million worldwide. It's certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes at 78%. Do I smell a new identity crisis? Well, there's just one problem. Everyone's wrong. The movie is terrible. And Marvel is already learning the wrong lessons from its success. Deadpool 3 snuck in a multiverse variant of Wolverine, and I was like, really? Do they think they can give us a whole new character and we'll be invested just because he's played by a familiar actor? Well, apparently so, because at this year's San Diego Comic-Con, we got a glimpse of where this is all headed. Avengers Doomsday, yes, complete with Robert Downey Jr. playing Dr. Doom. You throw in Chris Evans here as Johnny Storm? Congratulations, Marvel! You've managed to solve your identity crisis by going right back to the people that put you here. So I hope you guys are ready to embrace confusion and nostalgia because the MCU is officially back. You asked for it, guys. And all I can think is, at what cost? But hey, at least the popcorn will be good, right? Okay, we've got a great show for you lined up. Let's bring in Oliver Ricketts to talk about Deadpool and Wolverine. And joining me now, he has a YouTube channel called Other Productions and Media. He also is a contributor to the Designing Hollywood YouTube channel. Oliver the Ricketts is back. Hey, Oliver.
Hey, Sam. Thank you so much for having me back. How are you, man?
I'm doing very well, and thank you for being here. We just finished recording a project that's gonna air on other productions and media, if I'm not
Yep.
mistaken, right? So
Yep.
everybody should, of course, that'll be in the description of this video. Everybody should check out that channel. A lot of great existing content there already. But my selfish
Thank you.
side is also like go watch the thing that we did because it was a lot of fun. So we're gonna talk about Deadpool and Wolverine today. Is our discussion. We haven't really reviewed. I don't think we reviewed any of the Deadpool movies on this channel. So I'd kind of like to just start by asking, what is your memory of the first two Deadpool movies, and then kind of your anticipation going into this new one?
So I'm a mixed bag on Deadpool. I think both of the first two films are very true characterizations of what that character is.
Mhm.
And especially the first one, that's spectacular that Ryan Reynolds was able to get that film made without compromise, have it be the thing on the page. I also think Deadpool, even though I love it, has a little bit of Rick and Morty syndrome where it's
Oh
like
yeah.
it it is also annoying when someone is very, very into Deadpool
Yeah.
in some ways. But I'll also say Deadpool 2 maybe hit me at first of all, Deadpool 1 is that's a testament to great filmmaking too, what they were able to do with that budget,
Hmm.
how they were able to translate that character. No matter how you feel about the character in pop culture, that's incredible. I love that movie for that. And the best take on Colossus we've ever had as a huge
Yeah.
X-Men fan.
Yeah.
Um, Deadpool 2 probably hit me at the right time. 2017 was the first year that I was dating my wife. That movie is very much about relationships and how they spur you on and what it makes you do as a person and like found family and things. And so that's a really relevant movie to me. I even rewatched it going into Deadpool 3. I'm like, wow, this
Oh,
really hits at the end.
yeah. I rewatched the first two Deadpool movies last year, I want to say. I was dating a girl who had never seen him before, and we watched a lot of the X-Men movies, actually. And in our ranking of the X-Men movies, she put Deadpool 1 at the top of all the X-Men movies.
Wow.
And then she put Deadpool 2 at the bottom of all the X-Men movies.
Wow.
Again, I only showed her the best. So we only watched X-Men 1 to First Class, Days of Future Past, Deadpool 1 to Wolverine, or Logan, basically. So,
Mhm.
like, of the best, she put Deadpool 2 at the bottom. So I want to hedge it a little bit that way. But I
And I
do,
can also say
yeah,
Deadpool 1, if you are not a huge X-Men fan, I can totally see saying that's the best one. Because
yeah,
it's very approachable for like just a casual
right.
audience member.
And we'll talk about that as we get into Deadpool and Wolverine. And yeah, it's Deadpool 1. It just it's a testament. It's not a perfect film. I mean, maybe I don't know. It's a very good film. I'm gonna hesitate before I say it's a perfect film, but it's a solid. For the budget, for what they were able to do, knowing the history of this started. They wanted to put him in X-Men Origins Wolverine, butchered that, thought it was never going to get off the ground, had it leaked, and then made against all odds, turned out to be as good as it was. Huge win. Deadpool 2, I think, did suffer a little bit. My opinion of Deadpool 2 is it's not the worst of the X-Men movies, obviously, because I've seen all the X-Men movies. I know which ones are the worst. Dark Phoenix. But it is a step down, I think it's safe to say. I think it gets a little over encumbered with itself, and then there's a little bit of Flanderization that goes on with the Deadpool character. I think from 1 to 2, and especially
Blenderization's a great word for what's going on with Deadpool for sure
yeah.
overall.
And then, yeah, from going from Deadpool 2 to Deadpool and Wolverine. So I was already a little skeptical, I guess, going into Deadpool and Wolverine, because I was like, I mean, really, the first Deadpool movie is the good one. And Deadpool 2 is like, all right, we had a little bit more fun. We're still on that high. But I'm remember that first movie. So I'm like, that third movie, I'm like, are we really gonna, we're going in a step down? It's going into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which they acknowledge in the movie is at a low point right now. I was very cautious going into Deadpool and Wolverine. And before I throw it to you, I'll say I'll wait. I'll throw it to you first, and then I'll tease. And then I'll tease what my reaction is. What is your reaction to Deadpool and Wolverine now that we've talked about the first two?
So to be fair, I am not as big a Marvel hater as everybody else. I don't blanket love everything Marvel does, but I've also always been in the position that I did not love all of phase 1 and phase 2 either.
Okay, yeah,
Marvel has always been a machine of very high highs and then like average to lower quality consistently, in my
okay,
opinion. But the highs make you forget that.
yeah,
I also believe that it has been the same since Endgame.
Hmm.
But again, my opinion maybe is not the same as what everybody else's was before Endgame.
Yeah.
I think No Way Home and Guardians of the Galaxy 3 are the two best movies they've ever done, as for me as a fan. And so my anticipation of Deadpool, I like the first two. You have the same creative team. And I've also noticed that a lot of things that they do kind of in a vacuum that are not like the broader pick a character, make that thing,
Yeah.
sometimes work a little better. So I had very high expectations, especially because I think Hugh Jackman's Wolverine coming back with Deadpool was a great idea. And the marketing I thought was awesome. I really thought those trailers were great. It looked like so much fun. And are we saying what we thought?
Yeah, yeah, you can go ahead and do your initial reaction, kind of spoiler-free initial reaction, then I'll do mine, and then we'll do some plot points.
It's a 6 bordering on a 7. But
Okay. Out of 10.
but out of 10,
Okay, okay.
but it's a really fun one. You know what I mean? It's
Mhm.
I I'm so of two minds about this movie because all of the stuff with Hugh Jackman is amazing. I thought they treated
Okay.
him great.
Okay.
I think the actual action and some, not all, of the fan service works really well. Um, and overall, I spent the weekend thinking about the movie after having seen it, so there's got to be something there.
Okay.
Story wise, I cannot believe what they did to Deadpool in this movie. I think there are some beats here that are like, that's offensive,
Hmm.
like
Okay.
to story. And I also just like, I'm not a fan of Sean Levy as a director. I don't think he's put out a movie that is well put together ever. And I think this is the best he's ever done, and it's still not my favorite thing.
Yeah.
That being said, I'll probably rewatch this movie a good amount once I get over these things in my head.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So there's a lot there. I'm going to echo a lot of what you said. I really love the dialogue in this film. I enjoy,
Yep.
well, for the most part, I like Ryan Reynolds' interaction with Hugh Jackman. They have good banter, good chemistry. I like that. I met Brianna Hildebrand is a good friend of mine. We
Mm.
met at a Wizard World Comic Con in 2018. So
Oh, no way.
in the way that Mads Mikkelsen and I are great friends, Brianna
Yes,
Hildebrand
yes.
is a good friend of mine. So she's obviously fantastic in the film. I hope she calls me. Um, there are certain things about this movie that I like a lot. This suffers from a lot of the world and character destruction that a lot of Marvel Phase 4 and 5 does. Like the world of this is fucking confusing as hell.
Yeah.
The what is going on at certain times is so like, and I've heard all ends of the spectrum. I've heard this movie is very easy to follow. I've heard this movie is very hard to follow. The plot structure I hate in this film. I hate whereas the flashback, they clearly wanted to mimic what they did in the first Deadpool movie with the flashback structure out of it. That hinders, I think, this film because the pacing is so horrible. By like a third of the way through the movie, I'm like, what are we doing here? Um, so the story, I think, is the worst part of the film. The way it handles the characters you touched on as well, I'm not a big fan of as well. The dialogue, it's a funny movie. I have a lot of fun. So what do you want out of a movie? Do you want good action? Do you want comedy? There you go. Do you want a tonally consistent story? Do you want logic that makes sense? This doesn't have any of that. Also, I have such a weak spot for female characters and actresses. Emma Corrin, I think is her name, who plays Cassandra Nova, Charles
Yep.
Xavier's sister in this. Fantastic villain. But the
I
way
I
she's written,
totally agree.
she in the acting, the way
Yes.
she's written, I have no idea what she wants out of any of this. The character motivations are all over the place, horribly written. Emma Corrin, the actress, adds so much through her performance that it makes it a great character for me. This is such a mixed bag. I originally went 4 out of 10 when I left the theater. I said
Mm.
4 out of 10, which is only 2 points away from where you are, so not that. But now I'm thinking maybe more of a straight up 5. But that feels like I'm hedging too much. It really is about where is or is this is such a mixed bag. So it's really about, are we leaning more in the positive or are we leaning more in the negative? I'm not sure yet. I'm so confused. And I hope that as we discuss some plot points, I can get a better gauge of where I'm at. I'm so
Well,
conflicted.
that's interesting because when I left, there was no denying that I had fun watching this movie.
Right.
There's no way to get through it without being like, yeah, that's cool. Like,
Right.
but leaving, I was disappointed.
Hmm.
Like, and I think the disappointment has worn down over because I saw it Thursday.
Yeah.
Then I was down in Florida for the weekend, and there just was a lot of excitement about it down there.
Sure.
And so I think like a lot of the positives are sticking with me a little more. I would never tell somebody not to see it, and I also think there's something to Deadpool at one point goes like, "Well, we got to give the people what they want," and I think it is what the
Yeah.
masses want.
It is a
Um,
Marvel event film. They've successfully made another Marvel event film in the way that the Marvels wasn't, in the way that Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, which may actually be a better film than this.
Agree.
Black Panther, Wakanda Forever just wasn't that event Marvel film that the way that this is Spider-Man No Way at Home levels of you have to see it, and they've successfully done that. So
And
sure,
that's a different, you know, that's a different skill set.
yeah,
That's almost
yeah,
like I gotta laugh at a lot of the people on Letterbox and a lot of the negative tomato scores who are like, well, Deadpool's always been an edgelord. It's like, well, then this was never going to be for you. You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
there's no getting around that that's what the movie was going to be.
But there's a little bit of Flandersization there. So I think we've kind of gave our initial reaction. So from this point on, I'm going to start creeping more into spoilers. I'm not going to go full
Yeah.
on yet, but we're going to start creeping into spoilers. So there's our initial reaction. But there's a little bit of Flandersization that goes on with Deadpool in this movie because you watch Deadpool 1, and that's a
And
real
he's smart.
character. That's a
Yeah.
real. I believe that's a person. There's winks, there's breaking the fourth wall, there's jokes in there. I do not believe that this version of Deadpool and Deadpool and Wolverine is an actual human being, as much as a stand-in for all these jokes that the writers and Ryan Reynolds wants to make.
It has the Office syndrome in a
Yeah,
lot of ways, where
yeah,
like The Office was a really grounded show at the beginning, and then you get into like season 6, 7, 8, and it's like Kevin was not an
no,
invalid.
right,
He was
yeah,
just kind of dumb,
yeah,
you know? And I do think there's some of that going on with Deadpool, but at the same time, I've heard others who are more into the Deadpool comics say, yeah, but that is Deadpool, you know?
if that's who did, I hate this comics defense or what it She-Hulk. Oh,
Right.
Daredevil made jokes
Make
in
a
certain.
movie.
Yes, Daredevil made jokes in the whatever run. I'm like, well, that's not this version of Deadpool or Daredevil. Sorry, that was a horrible example. I shouldn't have said Daredevil because it's so close to Deadpool. Daredevil and She-Hulk, people try to defend that using the comics. Deadpool in this, I'm sure there are comics where you can defend his behavior, but my preferred version is the movie version from 2016 where it's a believable character. Obviously, I'm basing a lot of that on Ryan Reynolds' performance before he goes through the change. People would argue the change made him different. Well, I would have written it differently where he's still a believable human being, and he's just not anymore. Yeah,
He's got Homer Simpson energy now.
100%.
You've made him a little bit more meanable to whatever over the top situation you're gonna throw at it. I think a lot of that is also the influence of a few of the creative team.
Yeah,
Sean Levy, I just think kind of writes every character as if they're a caricature of Deadpool, even
yeah,
in his other movies.
yeah.
I think David Leitch, when he was doing Deadpool and Deadpool 2, that guy knows how to write characters.
Hmm.
Bullet Train is a movie that works because he can handle a lot of characters at a time.
That's a good movie. Yeah.
It's an incredible movie. Tim Miller spent over a decade trying to get the movie made.
Yes.
You know, Sean Levy makes, and I didn't even coin this phrase, but Quentin Tarantino did. He makes imaginary movies. He makes movies for Netflix.
No, you're right though. Yeah. Yeah, I just think, yeah, the Ryan Reynolds, I think there's more checks and balances maybe hinder it riding on that first Deadpool movie that kept it as good as it was. Like the quality control was a little bit tighter. Whereas, yeah, with Disney now, Marvel's in a rut. They're going to accept a lot more because this is better than I had more fun with this Marvel movie than I have at a lot of Marvel movies recently. So they've done
And
that. And
for
so
all
that
my
yeah.
problems with it, that is the movie that they needed to make right now.
Right. I'm gonna see it again too. There's enough in there. I'm gonna see it again. I feel like I'm hedging myself so much. So let's get into more specific. So using the Deadpool character, jumping on that a little bit more. So they have his relationship with Vanessa kind of destroyed
Oh,
by the beginning of this movie. I am so tired of this trope.
this is another thing I wanted to bring up. I'm a huge Spider-Man fan.
Right.
like huge. And I follow Spider-Man comics. I always have. The current Zeb Wells run of Amazing Spider-Man is the worst we've ever had in comics, period. Like, full stop. It is the most frustrating book. And every week, every month, you think it's going to get better, and it never does.
Mm.
And one of the main things that they are doing in that book is they are throwing everything to try to make you not, because we've accepted that he's not going to be with Mary Jane
Okay.
for a long time.
Okay.
But they're also throwing everything out there to be like, but you don't want him to be with Mary Jane, right? And it's like,
Ah,
no, I do, because those
yeah.
characters were actually designed for each other.
Mm-hmm.
And Zeb Wells, who writes that book, is one of the main writers on this movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And the second I saw him in the opening credits, I'm like, oh my
Your
God.
nemesis.
And then he did what Zeb Wells does. And in the opening, it's not just, are we spoiling?
Yeah, yeah, we're moving into spoilers now. Everybody be warned.
This is my number one biggest issue with this movie. It's not just that he takes the relationship with Vanessa and Deadpool, which is the heart of the other two movies. It's the sole motivation. It's the most relatable thing
Yeah.
about the character.
Yeah.
And they have a profound love for each other in those movies. They shouldn't be easily broken up. If you
Mm-hmm.
want to break them up, that can be a story point.
You have to work for it. Yeah.
Yeah. They didn't even explain why they broke up.
Yeah, I think it was just like I have no idea honestly what it was. I
There
want to say he didn't become an Avenger, so he was depressed after that, and then he let his relationship fall apart. I think I have no
there's a
idea.
scene where she's like, you got to do something, and he says, then just leave me. That's not telling me why they broke up. That's showing me when they broke up.
It feels like the Thor Love and Thunder bullshit, which wasn't, it was at least funnier the way that Thor Love and Thunder handled it. But it feels like as hand wavy as that. Like that was Thor Love and Thunder being like, we're not gonna like, we know you're not invested in this. Let's just make you laugh, you know?
But
And
the
this
difference
movie
is we
doing
are
it.
invested in Wade and Vanessa.
Exactly. Exactly. It goes back to you treat certain aspects of it like a real movie. You don't,
Right.
you don't you make light of certain things like in the way that they did here. It's very frustrating. You didn't even need to do that, honestly. He
I
could
was
have,
literally just going to say that's the most frustrating thing about
yeah.
it is that that's in there. So at the end, he can be like, I'm saving the world for Vanessa. But you know where else you could do that is if Vanessa was his wife and mother of his child, like they set
Yeah.
up in the last movie,
Yeah.
you'd still want to stop her world from being destroyed.
Yeah, like you don't need another it's my like in Guardians of the Galaxy, like of course I want to save the world. I live there. Like
Yeah.
duh. Like but yeah, beyond that, yes. You could just keep the status quo from the end of the second Deadpool movie. It was so and on that point, the inclusion of the TVA, I just
Yep.
want to say I hate it so much because I was not a fan of Loki. I don't like the whole sacred timeline thing. I think the idea that everything in the Marvel universe is preordained and approved by a bureaucracy takes so much fun out of this universe for me.
Agree.
So adding the TVA, and I can't take credit for this, but it makes so much sense. You could have done time travel shenanigans just using again the status quo from the end of Deadpool 2. It's that obviously wasn't going to be the last time that he uses
The temp pad.
the temp
Yeah,
pad.
Cable's time machine. It's right there.
It's right there, but no, we need the TVA to jump in, and then yeah, and now we get into more convoluted bullshit that I hate.
That's the biggest problem with Loki. I love Loki season 2. I hate Loki season 1.
I did like season 2 more because a lot of
I
character
think,
stuff is good, but
yeah,
yeah,
2 actually talks about the characters and is not
yeah,
trying to explain time travel to you every single time.
yes,
I have mixed opinions about TVA. Number one, I love Matthew McFadyen. I'm a huge Succession guy.
oh
He
yes,
plays my favorite character on the show. And this character is the same as that character, except this guy's British. So for me, it was like, oh, it's Tom Wamsgams. So that was fun for me. I kind of feel like they picked him because of Succession, because it's so similar to where it's like, I almost feel like there was a weird precedent in this movie that we wanted them to make fun of Disney so much that they only made fun of Disney. A previous Deadpool movie would have had a few Succession jokes, but now that's Warner Brothers. We're not going to do that. I don't
Yeah.
know what's up. They only were dogging on the parent company, which is great. I'm glad they were able to do that.
But it feels so corporate and pre-approved, you
They
know?
didn't do anything else. It was
Other
very strange
other than the one jab that they made at
at DC.
DC, which again, we're spoiling it now. Henry Cavill is in this movie as a variant of Wolverine. It may be a thing in the future. They may just be testing it a little bit. I honestly think it's going to be like a John Krasinski and
Yeah.
Doctor Strange situation where we're never going to see him again.
But I'm
Um,
happy for that because I hate Henry Cavill. But there's
oh,
that.
wow, the best Superman. You hate him. Oh, that's
I
disgusting.
He made one really great Superman movie,
Man of
and
Steel,
then
yeah.
BVS is not.
The
It's
Ultimate
just not it,
Edition.
man.
You're talking about the Ultimate Edition, right?
I'm talking about any
Any
iteration
version.
of that. Any iteration of Man of Steel is a good movie. It's the only good DC movie that Zack Snyder made, and it's the only good movie that Henry Cavill is in.
Well, I am on my arc was I loved Zack Snyder up until this year, and then until he made two of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life. I defended Army
Uh,
of the Dead. I feel it's like when you stick through an abusive relationship and then you get out of it and you're like, I can't believe I defended that, you
I was
know?
so disappointed in that because I love Dawn of the Dead.
Right.
Um,
And yeah, Zack Snyder directed Dawn of the Dead. James Gunn wrote it, you know?
but regardless, I think the thing with the TVA is it
Yes.
shows again you had time travel set up in Deadpool, but there was definitely priority in this movie to be like you got to do something with what Disney has already got.
Right.
And you also there's definitely a mandate on you got to have cameos.
Yeah.
So much so that we sideline all of the characters that we love from Deadpool.
If I was Brianna Hildebrand, I'd be so mad at Daphne King. Right.
Yeah.
Well, probably not because she's probably a diplomatic person, not petty at all. She's great. Got other things going on. But if I were her, because I am petty, I'd be like, what the hell is Daphne King doing as the lead, the lead chummy female plucky sidekick? That's my role. What the hell?
Even like the end of the movie when you do Deadpool core.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
almost do the writers of this movie just not like the characters from that movie from the first two films because they have Peter come out
Mm-hmm.
and stop the Deadpool core, which is funny. What would have been better than the joke because it's established that they're back in Deadpool's universe.
Yes.
All the Deadpool core are rising back up. They're respawning. Wolverine and Deadpool are outnumbered. Colossus, Negasonic,
Yep.
Vanisher, everybody else, they come in and they help them there.
They hold the line while they can go and defeat Cassandra after. Yeah.
And that makes you feel like they're in the movie. The same way that the cameos driving to stop Cassandra Nova makes you feel like they're in the movie more.
Yes.
You don't need to give them a lot of screen time, but give them something to do other than sit in Wade's apartment.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, me and Brianna, we'll talk this through. It's okay. That's the third time I made the joke. You can't do it more than 3 times. Rule of threes. Okay. Let's talk about Wolverine. All right. I mentioned I'm gonna get a little pedantic at times. It's very clear that Wolverine takes place in 2029. So 2029, obviously, and then so Deadpool takes place in 2018. They say 6 years later, which is 2024. Does Deadpool use the temp pad to jump to the future and go get Wolverine's corpse, or they
I'm
say,
so
or they
confused about any of it.
I don't know if they're retconning when Wolverine took place or what, but
I'm guessing he jumps to the future, but it's again, you wouldn't know it from the movie only because they released that update forever ago when they announced Hugh Jackman and they specifically said that takes place in the future. We're not touching that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's confused. I was so confused. So I thought in the movie that they misremembered when Logan took place and they thought Logan took place in like 2017. And I was like, that's just so not true. And again, this is so pedantic.
It's
Nobody cares,
future.
but
I'll do you one better. We get multiverse hopping from the TVA, but Deadpool goes to the 616 Marvel universe by himself with no explanation at the beginning of the movie, and they never tell us how.
Yeah, that's why I was like, surely this is I thought that would come from TVA nonsense. At the end, I thought they would naturally integrate them in the Marvel Cinematic. They don't even bother with any of that. They just.
Well, and that's also like when they were doing non-sequential storytelling, I thought Matthew McFadden was going to say something to the effect of like, you're going to go and try to be in the Avengers, or you did that and that's why we're here.
Yeah.
But no, I guess Deadpool can just jump universes by himself.
Yeah, what is a time a canon event or whatever they call it now, like a whatever what are you allowed to do and what are you not allowed to do? They're very
Right.
inconsistent on that. Let's talk about some cameos. Elektra, Wesley Snipes as Blade, Channing Tatum, probably the best of all the cameos. Channing
Agree.
Tatum as Gambit, and then Daphne King, of course, as X-23. What did you think of those? They seemed like they were pretty light on story, but except for maybe no, including X-23, they're all light on story. I liked them all, except I don't think X-23 really fits.
So I'm almost inverse on you there.
Okay.
I thought X-23 at first, I was very nervous about it, but that fireside conversation that she has with Logan is the heart of the character in the movie. That she says, like, I got to have a life because of you. That's the most they did with any of the cameos in this movie.
Yeah.
She's story-wise, she's a motivating force. There's a reason for her to be here. I do think the cameos are very cool, but this is a case of a scene where it is just people coming out, looking at the camera and saying, I'm this guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
In ways that people claim Spider-Man No Way Home does, and I really don't think it does.
Yeah, I agree.
That whole scene is constructed to just be, and now look who this is, and now look who this is. Whereas No Way Home, they were showing up to solve the problem.
Right.
And they also showed up like without the reverence of like, look who I am. It's like they showed up and they started talking immediately, you know? Also, Snipes' Blade, amazing pop on the screen. Why wasn't he wearing his jacket? Why didn't he have his sword? Why, like, what was really the function? Is that really Blade or is that Wesley Snipes? Elektra, a little weird. Because that's the like whole idea of like, people can hate something at the time. You wait 10 years and bring it out and tell them that it's an old thing, and now they're nostalgic for it. Nobody likes the Elektra movie.
Nobody ever thought that was good. And yeah, it's not one of those things where it's like, oh, we forgive you, Andrew Garfield. No, because there's no substance there. It's not
Right.
like, yeah.
Because people liked Andrew Garfield, just not the film.
Right. Yeah, and then also very weird joke about oh, Deadpool's dead. So she's like, it's all right, because obviously the joke is that it's a funny joke, but I'm like, if I was Jennifer Garner, I'd be like, well, that's a little
that's a little in my business.
Let's just yeah, it is. So I touched on Wolverine a little bit, and I forgot I jumped away from him after I got caught up on the pedantic timeline stuff. So I'll tie it in with X-23. I like Gambit because they kind of gave him the Andrew Garfield, kind of thing. They gave him the moment that he had, so that's why I like Gambit. It's very funny. Blah blah blah. X-23 and Logan. They don't have a relationship in this film. As far as I know, I don't even know if X-23 exists in his universe. And I think this is the version from Logan. Like this is the version
from Logan for sure.
So he is probably, if I was him, I'd just be like, who the hell is this? Like, like I don't even know who this is. And then by the end of the film, we're supposed to be like, the movie thinks they've successfully replaced that relationship, and now they're at the point where they were at the end of Logan by the end of this movie. And I'm like, I don't buy that relationship in the way that I bought it over the course of Logan.
I could totally see that, but to me, it's almost like these are two characters meeting, and one person means a lot more to the other one than vice versa.
Okay.
He means a lot to her because that looks like the guy that she knew who saved her life and was probably one of the most defining relationships in her life.
Right.
He doesn't care about her per se, in my head, justifying it, but he does care about the idea that he can help people and he was a hero.
Yeah.
And that he's not a monster. I think that gets stronger if you find out about him going on the killing spree much sooner.
That's right. The structuring is very weird. With the Wolverine stuff, they I don't know how I feel about that exactly. I do think it's a very weird choice to make him responsible for going on a killing spree of a bunch of mutants a bunch of humans after the mutants were killed because of his lack of action. I don't know how I feel about the killing spree. I feel like the lack of action, I understand, I get that. But the killing spree after, I'm a little bit. I understand they want to say this is a course Wolverine could have taken, but man, that's a dark course, especially for the hero of this movie.
Wolverine, it's almost like it's weird because there is the like fan service thing there of like people know Wolverine going berserker mode in the comics, right?
Yes.
why isn't it in the movie then? If that's
Right.
what it's alluding to, show me that.
At the
Let me
beginning,
see
yeah,
it.
show a juxtaposition from the
Yeah,
beginning to the end, or maybe a justifiable berserker mode at the end. It's like now I'm always angry kind of thing, like I
right.
don't know. There's a way
Yeah,
you could do it as a point of as opposed to avoiding it entirely.
but that's again like I just think like Sean Levy, Zeb Wells, these guys don't know how to write. They're great visual guys. Sean Levy is definitely a studio guy who knows how to work in a system and get them to do things,
Yeah.
but I don't think he's the best storyteller in the world.
So just to recap, I think they did significant damage to Deadpool's character. I think they did significant damage to Wolverine's character. They mucked up the timeline even more than they had already with Logan and everything. Also, I thought that Logan always was an alternate timeline, not after X-Men Days of Future Past, but now they're confirming that after everything was fixed in X-Men Days of Future Past, it went to shit again in Logan. Don't like that.
I was confused by that too.
Yeah.
I'm actually kind of hoping for a retcon on that because the Days of Future Past twist is so genius
Mhm.
that they had the balls to go back and say all that,
Yeah.
nah,
Yeah.
even the good stuff,
Hmm.
different timeline. That's also the thing that opened us up for Deadpool to where if you're a continuity stickler, you can say, well, that's a different Deadpool.
Exactly. So yeah, it's so frustrating. They mucked up the timeline even more. They sidelined some of my favorite characters, including good friend of mine, Brandon Hildebrand, replaced them with a bunch of cameos that did get a pop in the theater.
Mhm.
But I am curious. I am going to rewatch it tomorrow night, so I'm curious when I rewatch it how much substance there is to it, and also kind of with Spider-Man No Way Home, their cameos are used better, but there's definitely a moment you watch the movie without an audience, and it feels so awkward. They come on the screen and they're like, "Hey, everybody."
So for No Way Home, I've made a few videos on why I disagree with that
Oh,
specifically for that movie.
okay.
In that you always hear like, well, there's the sitcom pause, right?
Yeah.
But let's go back Star Wars, right? Luke, I am your father. He doesn't immediately scream no. He waits a good 10 seconds. I've actually timed this out on my channel.
Wow. Okay.
Sometimes people need to react in real time the same way that the audience is digesting what just happened.
Fair.
Why it works in No Way Home. Because Andrew Garfield coming from the portal, if you're Zendaya, here's a parallel universe version of my boyfriend. Let
Hmm.
me digest this for a minute, and then I'm
Hmm.
going to start talking.
Yeah.
It just so happens that the audience is also digesting.
Yeah.
He's here.
Yeah.
Deadpool doesn't do that. Deadpool has a scene where people come out, they look at the camera zooms back, they don't speak, and then someone like at least on Gambit, he goes, "Wow." Like that's not the same.
That's way worse. That's so much more
Yeah.
in your face.
And
Um,
it's confusing because of how many people are like talking about this and being like, well, they handle it better than that. They also handle it better than Multiverse of Madness, that's another one that I'll go to plate for and say, I think you guys missed the joke. The joke is that you're sitting there in Multiverse of Madness waiting for these cameos more than you're sitting there for the movie. And
mhm.
so Sam Raimi does give you a scene that's like, look, here they all are,
Yeah.
and then he kills him. That's the joke. Like, so that's self-aware. This is just cameos to be cameos, and that's fine, but it's not the same as those.
Interesting. I'm not going to even touch Multiverse of Madness. I despise that movie. I'm not even touching it. Um, what do we think? Big topic of discussion going into this movie. Comic accurate Wolverine suit. What do you think about the comic accurate Wolverine suit?
I have always fucked with it.
Okay.
I wish they went yellow and brown. I think
Oh,
that
but
would have, but that's also my favorite Wolverine suit on the page.
okay. You
Um,
don't mean like the X-Men? Oh no, that's more of like an orange and brown kind of. What is the
when
X-Men
he,
Evolution suit? I like that one. It's a little different.
yeah, when he fights the Hulk, that's my favorite.
Okay.
In that with those, all the blue is basically just brown. I think that looks so sick, but maybe they'll do that later. I do think it looks good in the context of this was the movie to do that in, I think.
Yeah.
When you hold it next to Deadpool, and I'll also say Deadpool, for whatever reason, that character model holds CGI better than like any other character model out there right now.
Yeah.
Like he looks so good, even when Wolverine looks kind of uncanny in some spots. Deadpool looks great. I don't know what it is that like when you throw cartoonishness on him, it just like it eats it. Something about that suit.
So about that, I do. That was my biggest problem with the Wolverine suit was the mask. I feel like the mask is entirely CGI, and I do
Yep.
not like it at all. It looks CGI. It looks like it's floating on his head. I can feel them having to track it over his head as he's moving.
Yep.
It just feel it on that point that you made. I think Deadpool's mask and Spider-Man's mask to a degree work because it's a full, what's covering his whole face. Whenever you do a half and half situation like that, but then also animate the eyes in the way that you do for Deadpool and Spider-Man, that's where it, for me anyways, maybe that's where I start to register it as being a little bit more uncanny. I don't know. What do you think?
I was glad they didn't use the mask for the whole movie.
Me too. Yeah.
Um, I think it showing up to slice up the bus was very cool. But to your point, and I can just look past these things. Maybe part of that is that like I love older superhero movies. I love bad movies. So maybe my brain is like twisted a little where I'm like, okay, whatever, man. Um, when he jumps out of that bus, it looks so sick when they're coming out of the window.
Yeah.
And then there's that clip that's been floating around Twitter. He lands and he's like panting Wolverine,
Hmm.
and he looks like a video game. It looks
Yeah.
like Mortal Kombat. It's not, you're right, it is uncanny. But at the same time,
Yeah.
I think I think at the same time, if you didn't do the mask at all, we'd be sitting here saying, why didn't you do it?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I see the utility behind it, and I see the like. I don't know. I just thought the suit without the mask looked good. I did like the reason they gave behind him wearing the suit because, like, it is on its face a little at odds with. Okay, you know you're ashamed of having been an X-Men. Why are you wearing this suit? And then now he's like, oh, I wear it as the reminder. I thought that was, and then using the mask as a payoff. Story-wise, it worked. I just don't think they nailed the landing on the design.
Yeah, the actual look of it. I can totally see that. I think I'd have a much bigger problem with it if he was wearing it the whole time, because then it's almost like that's also a different character. You know what I mean? Like him putting on the mask as like I wear it sometimes, that makes almost more sense to me than the character that gets in the plane and goes like, you would wear this black jumpsuit, back in X-Men 2001.
Yeah.
Like that's a little strange, but at the same time, my brain turns off at some point and goes, it is big event movie, and it is cool that they finally did it.
I agree. And I'm glad they did it at least. It's you got to have it in there. I had another great question lined up, but then okay, yeah, I was gonna. We touched on Cassandra Nova a little bit, but it's kind of me having a crush on her. So, what would you like to say about our villain, Cassandra Nova? We hinted her revolving plot, her revolving motivations a little bit earlier.
So I love the performance. I love how scary they were able to make her. All those effects with her reaching through their head and the thumbs coming out, that's so intimidating.
She's
I thought
mommy
that was
dommy.
great. And honestly, I was rolling with her until they brought her to the real world. I think if you leave her in the void,
Yeah.
she's a stronger character, because then it becomes, I'd like to see more of that character.
Hmm.
She's not the main villain.
You could have almost, yeah, set her, you could have left her out of the third act of the movie entirely, and I would want to see her again. I would
Right.
be excited to her. What if she escapes, or something, like later on? I mean, what if they set it up properly instead of just like, oh, I guess I'm doing this now.
What if she's eventually going to meet Xavier, who is the anchor? That's almost like Venom without Spider-Man.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, as a side character, though, that would have worked. That would have been somebody that people were like, much like Furiosa, I want to see more of that.
Hmm.
When you bring her out for the finale, and the finale is just again like a beam shoot somewhere, we're taking her down a notch. I
Mm.
think they should have had the confidence, because it's such a perfect Deadpool villain, to just have the villain be middle management succession snob.
Yeah.
Because something about like a villain who's just in it for the corporate structure bounces so nicely off of Deadpool. They should have just let Matthew McFadden be the end all bad guy at the end of the movie.
Yeah, it does seem like to speak to a little bit of insecurity about him and having that type of performance, whereas you want more of a big, comic book marketable villain, and Cassandra Nova is that. And again, I wouldn't not have her in the film. I like
Right.
her in the Void. I do think that spending such of a big middle chunk of the film in the Void, like not dealing with the main plot, and then they have to tie it in with Pyro, like having to work to assassinate her kind of for Paradox, and then it's like, well, it raises all these questions. Well, why don't you just like, you're the TVA, why can't you just get rid
Why
of
don't
her?
you just go in and erase her?
Yeah, like, yeah, what is like, and why can't you just make Goliath go? The whole, that also setting up the world and how everything works in there, I'm so overloaded on exposition. At one point Deadpool says that's a lot of exposition for a threequel, and I'm like, it is.
And when you point it out, it doesn't make it not the case.
Exactly. And the movie does so much of that. Is like, haha, isn't it funny that we're doing this? Anyways, we're gonna do it now.
Right.
Like,
Good try, but that doesn't maybe a workaround,
yeah,
you know?
yeah.
I also think the movie is rumored to have a budget of $300 million at
Which
one point.
is insane when you consider where this all came from.
100% because Deadpool was a shoestring budget movie.
Yeah.
58 million in a year that we also got Batman versus Superman and Captain America Civil War at $250 million.
Mm-hmm.
That Deadpool did that for not even half.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And they learned all the wrong lessons from that movie.
And if you do, oh, well, that's Disney 101.
Yeah.
If you do Deadpool for $300 million, it should have been bigger than this. The fact that we're in the Void the entire time,
which is not an impressive set. Again,
it's a blue screen.
It's a blue screen, and then the climax set that they use also at the beginning of the film. It does the set. It doesn't show on the set the budget, which is not a good sign.
The whole movie that doesn't take place in the Void takes place on a city street that could have been in like a Broadway show.
Yeah,
it's a facade of like the same 6 buildings. That's the only spot where they go.
But it has all the Rob Liefeld jokes in the back, so you got to forgive all that stuff because
the Rob Liefeld jokes that they showed me in the trailer 6 months ago.
Yeah, it's like you should still be impressed by that so much that you forgive all these shortcomings. That's again, and I feel like there's a lot of that with the people defending the movie. And again, it is a crowd pleaser. I am in the minority when I hate on it, So
and also like, I don't want to take that from somebody. If you went and had a blast with the movie, I do. Give it to me.
Give it to me. It's mine now.
But if you went and had a blast with the movie, that's great. I want to be there. I want to have, because I did have fun with it. Yeah. I want to react to it the same way that I did the first and second movie. It's just when you do things to the story like this, it's like I can't get there.
Yeah. So again, to wrap this all up, I loved a lot of the dialogue. I like a lot of the humor. I do think the Deadpool character is a little bit of a caricature of the version that we met in 2016. I would have liked a little bit more nuanced stuff. But then whenever you get into the nuanced story elements of this movie, they fail on a lot of it, I thought. The Wolverine, I am very mixed on his storyline. I just don't know how I feel about following a version of Wolverine that massacred a bunch of people, even if he learns a lesson at the end. I just find that to be a very weird way to go with the character. I don't know. It's a very weird way to go to character. This movie has a very mixed bag for me. I think I'm standing by my 4 out of 10. I think I am.
Fair. And I think the more that I think about it, the more it goes from 6 to a 6.5. It also like maybe shows, maybe it's a sign of the times that like even a movie that I don't love, it did make me excited for what they have to offer. They can still do that. They can still come out and be like, okay, maybe it's not cinema, but we got event. Yeah. And it is fun,
To be clear, The Marvels was not even a 4 out of 10. It was
The Marvels was an unfinished movie.
Yeah, it like literally.
That was what was, and I also feel the same about the Eternals.
Yeah,
where it's like these movies something happened when they were going over the finish line that these third acts are not even close to done.
Yeah.
And that's when Marvel was really starting to disappoint me, because that is taking the audience for granted.
Mm-hmm.
If you put out a movie and I don't like the story, and that's me not liking this movie,
Mm-hmm.
But if you put out a movie and I can see that you're really pouring yourself into, we want to make this fun, we want people to have a good time with it. Well, that's what comic books are about, and that's what they're there for. I will not accept movies being, especially something like Eternals, which I found much more offensive than the Marvels, because the Marvels, by the time we got there, it was like, all right, take it. We know.
Just let it die.
But although that is not an excuse for not having finished editing the movie. That's crazy.
Yeah.
The Eternals, they almost like that whole marketing push was like, remember, we're Marvel, and if we say enough times that this is the best movie ever, you'll forget that we didn't write the end of the movie, and nothing that happens in it pays off. That's taking advantage of your audience, and I cannot accept that.
Yeah.
This is a step in the right direction.
We're not there yet. This is better, though.
It's not the cure-all. It's not perfect, but it does show that we're trying again. We're doing something that's not, we're going to take it for granted that we're making $1 billion every time.
Again, 4 out of 10. Step in the right direction. 4 out of 10. Where are we at?
4 is better than 2, man.
4 is better than 2. Oliver the Ricketts, thank you so much. Other productions and media?
Yes, sir. Other productions and media, or if you look up Oliver the Ricketts, I am all over the place. My documentary series, Oliver the Ricketts, American Genius, we're getting new episodes very soon. And in one of them, I'm going to crack a watermelon between my thighs. So there's the tease.
You keep teasing that.
It's happening, man. It's happening. It's going to be like 45 minutes. It's one of the crazier, bigger videos that I've ever done.
Other productions and media, and also a contributor at Designing Hollywood.
Yep.
Oliver the Ricketts, thank you so much for joining the show.
Sam, thank you so much for having me, man. This is always a blast.
All right, that's our show. I'd like to thank Oliver Ricketts for joining us this week. Next week, John Lynn and Alex McKellar will be back to talk about The Boys Season 4. Make sure you subscribe to the Film Fan Club on YouTube. Follow the Film Fan Club show wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Sam Carrico. Thanks so much for joining me. I'll see you next week.